They used to laugh when they said it. Like it was affectionate. Like it didn't land. They called me the charity case for years, and I kept showing up anyway. My name is Lauren Whitaker. I'm 33. The night that finally stuck started with a restaurant check and a joke that went a little too far. We were at the same family place after church, the one with the laminated menus and the booths that squeak when you slide in. My mom had already ordered iced tea for everyone without asking. That was her thing. Brad leaned back, stretched his arms, and smiled at the table next to us like we were putting on a show. "Lauren's good," he said. "She's used to scraping by." Our little charity case. The server froze with her notepad half up. Someone 2 tables over laughed. I stared at the condensation ring under my water glass. The paper napkin was tearing where my thumb kept rubbing it. That was one of those moments that stayed with me longer than I expected. No one corrected him. Not my mom. Not Tessa. Mom just said, "Oh, stop," without stopping him. Then she turned to me and smiled the way she always did when she wanted me quiet. "You know he's kidding." I nodded. I always nodded. When the checks came, I asked the server to split them. My voice didn't shake, which surprised me. I paid my share, stood up, and said I had an early morning. Brad blinked like he'd missed a step. "You don't have to rush," he said. "We're family." I said I knew. Then I left. Back at my apartment, the kitchen light buzzed the way it always did when it warmed up. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and slid the manila folder out of my tote. It bent a little at the corner when it hit the counter. Inside were bank statements my grandma had asked me to organize for her. "Just filing," she said. "Just keep them straight." I hadn't opened them yet. I microwaved leftovers and ate standing up. My phone buzzed twice. A text from my mom. "Brad didn't mean anything. Don't be sensitive." Another buzz a minute later. "Also, quick question. Are you still good to help if something comes up?" Something. It was always something. A few days earlier, I'd been at Grandma Jo's house, sitting in the den she kept for company. She called it the good room, even though no one was allowed to live in it. Plastic runners still covered part of the carpet. She handed me a small stack of envelopes and tapped them with her finger. "Can you file these for me, honey?" she asked. "You're good with paperwork." I told her yes. I always did. Grandma Jo watched me the way she always did. Quiet. Not smiling. Not smiling. "Just keep them safe," she said. "All right?" I said, of course. That night in my apartment, I finally opened the folder. The statements smelled faintly like the lavender sachet she kept in her desk drawer. I laid them out in a neat stack and started flipping. At first, nothing jumped out. Balances. Dates. The same bank logo over and over. Then I noticed the withdrawal amounts. Cash. Not checks. Not transfers. The notes were brief. Handwritten initials sometimes, like reminders. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and wrote the amounts down, one under the other. It felt automatic, the way my hands move at work when something doesn't reconcile. My phone rang. Mom's name filled the screen. I let it ring once more than usual before answering. "Hey," she said, already mid-sentence. "So listen, Brad might need a little help this month. Nothing big, just until things even out." I looked at the numbers again. The pad was already half full. "How much is a little?" I asked. She laughed, light and quick. "Oh, don't get technical. You always do that." I didn't answer right away. I turned one of the statements sideways, then back again, like it might change. "Lauren," she said, her voice tightening just a bit. "We're family." I stared at the bent corner of the folder, at my name written in my own pen at the top of the pad. I said I needed to think about it. She sighed like I disappointed her, then softened. "Just don't make this a thing." After we hung up, I kept writing. Dates. Amounts. Small notes in the margins. By the time I finished, I didn't feel dramatic. I felt tired. Then my phone lit up again. This time it was a text from Brad. "You're not mad about that joke, are you?" Brad's text sat on my screen like it was harmless. "You're not mad about that joke, are you?" I didn't answer. I set my phone face down on the counter and stared at the yellow legal pad until the ink looked blurry. The kitchen was quiet except for my fridge humming and the neighbor's TV bleeding through the wall in muffled bursts. I slid the bank statements back into the manila folder, then pulled them out again, like I couldn't decide whether I was allowed to know what I was looking at. At work the next morning, I tried to act normal. I posted payments, checked codes, watched the little spinning wheel on my computer like it could hypnotize me into forgetting my family existed. Around mid-morning, my phone buzzed again. "Mom." "Hey," she said, breathy like she'd been holding it. "Did you think about what I said?" I leaned back in my desk chair and glanced at the glass wall of my cubicle. My coworker Mara was 2 pods over, tapping a highlighter against her teeth while she read a denial letter. "I'm at work," I said. I know. Mom lowered her voice like that, made it respectful. "It's just, Brad's car note is behind. He's stressed. Tessa's stressed. And you know how Grandma gets when she hears stress." I stared at a sticky note on my monitor that said, "Call patient back," in my own handwriting. The pen pressure was so hard the paper was dented. "You want me to pay his car?" I asked. Mom laughed again, the same quick laugh from last night. "No, not pay. Just help. You always make it sound like we're taking from you." My throat tightened, not in a dramatic way. More like my body was trying to swallow words before they became a fight. "I'm not making it sound like anything," I said. "I'm asking what you want." She paused, and I could hear the kitchen in the background at her house. A cabinet door. The clink of a spoon. "Lauren," she said, slower now, "you have it together. You always have. You're responsible. You don't have kids. You don't have all these expenses." That was one of her favorite things to say, like my life was a blank page and theirs was a novel. "How much?" I asked again. She exhaled like I was being difficult. 600, maybe 8, depending on late fees. "It's not forever." I didn't answer right away. I could feel my fingers pressing into the edge of my desk. My nail caught a rough spot on the laminate and scraped it, back and forth. Mom softened her voice. "And it's not like you haven't been helped, Lauren. Come on." Helped, like they were the ones keeping me afloat. "I'll call you back," I said. "Just don't make this weird," she replied, and then she hung up first. At lunch, I ate in my car in the clinic parking lot. The steering wheel was warm from the sun. I opened my bank app out of habit, then closed it. I wasn't even looking at my own money. I was thinking about Grandma's. After work, I drove straight to Grandma Jo's house. Her brick place sat in a row of older homes with tidy lawns and porch chairs nobody actually used. When I pulled up, her front window curtains moved a fraction. She always saw you before you knocked. She opened the door before I reached the step. "There you are," she said. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were sharp. Inside smelled like lemon polish and the soup she liked to keep simmering even when she wasn't hungry. The good room was untouched. Same plastic runner, same framed photo of Grandpa in his Navy uniform. I set the manila folder on her dining table like it was heavier than it was. I started filing those statements, I said. Grandma Jo didn't sit right away. She stood at the end of the table and looked at the folder, then at me. She said. I opened it carefully, sliding one statement out and flattening it with the palm of my hand. My fingers left a faint smudge on the paper. "There are a lot of cash withdrawals," I said. "More than I expected." Grandma Jo pulled out her chair and sat. She clasped her hands like she was at church, but her thumb moved in a slow circle over her knuckle. "That's my money," she said simply. "I know." I kept my voice level. "Do you do that often?" She stared at the statement without touching it. "I don't go to the bank like I used to," she said. "They bring things to me. Sometimes your mother helps." My stomach did a small drop, like an elevator starting down before you're ready. "Mom helps you withdraw cash?" I asked. Grandma Jo didn't answer right away. She reached for the statement, then stopped short, like she didn't want to give herself permission. "Your brother stops by," she said finally. "He visits. He checks on me." I heard the shape of it before she said it. The careful wording. The way she didn't say asks. "Does Brad ask you for cash?" I asked. Grandma Jo's eyes lifted to mine. "He says things," she said. "He says he's in a pinch. He says it's temporary." I kept my face still. That took effort. "Do you remember how much?" I asked. She shrugged one shoulder. "A little here and there." My phone buzzed in my purse on the chair beside me. I didn't look. I didn't need to. I knew it would be Mom again, or Brad, or both. "Grandma," I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "Brad told Mom he hasn't asked you for money." Grandma Jo's mouth tightened. Just a thin line. "Well," she said, like she was choosing her words from a drawer, He wouldn't say it like that. I slid another statement out, then another. My legal pad came next. I'd folded it in half, and the crease was still sharp. I wrote down what I saw, I said. Grandma Jo watched my handwriting, the columns, the dates, the amounts stacked like bricks. Lauren, she said quietly, your mother worries about appearances. I almost laughed, but it wouldn't come out right. I just nodded. Then Grandma Jo reached into the folder herself, slow, and pulled a page that had a handwritten note beside one of the withdrawals. It was small, like an afterthought. Brad. Car. My fingertips went cold. My first instinct was to protect Grandma Jo from the feeling on my face, so I looked back down at the paper like I was still just sorting. Like this was normal. Grandma's dining room was bright in the late afternoon, the kind of light that shows every crumb you missed. Her table was covered with a lace runner she never actually washed, just shook out on the porch when it got dusty. She tapped the note with one fingernail. Brad. Car, she read, like she didn't want to believe her own eyes. Who wrote that? I don't know, I said. It's on multiple pages. That was true. Some notes were in my mom's handwriting. Some looked like Brad's quick scrawl. Some were just initials. Grandma Jo pushed the statement back toward me, not hard, but like she wanted space between her and it. He told me he was selling something, she said. He said he had a plan. I kept my voice even. It felt like holding a glass full of water, trying not to spill it. He told Mom he never asked you for money. Grandma Jo blinked slowly. Your mother doesn't like conflict, she said, which was her way of saying my mother would lie to keep the room smooth. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. Brad. Calling. I didn't answer. I set the phone on the table, screen down, and left it there. No argument. No explanation. Just silence. Grandma noticed. She watched my hand retreat like I'd just made a choice out loud. Let it ring, she said. It rang until it stopped. Then a text came through a second later. Brad, why are you at Grandma's? My stomach tightened. I hadn't told anyone I was here. Grandma Jo's landline sat on a side table by the hallway, the cord curled like an old snake. She reached for it, then stopped. Don't, I said gently, surprising myself with the firmness. Let's just look at this first. She nodded, once, like she was granting me permission to drive. I laid out 3 statements in a row. The paper edges didn't line up perfectly. One page had a coffee stain near the corner. Another had a fold that made a ridge down the middle. Do you remember giving him cash for his car? I asked. Grandma Jo's gaze drifted toward the front window. I remember him sitting right there, she said, pointing at the armchair in the living room. He had his keys in his hand. He kept jingling them. Like that would make me hurry. I pictured it too easily. Brad leaning forward, talking fast, using that anxious voice that made you feel mean if you slowed him down. He said Tessa was worried. Grandma Jo continued. He said the baby might need a different car seat. He said he couldn't get to work. He doesn't even have a baby, I said before I could stop myself. Grandma Jo's mouth fell open a fraction. Then she closed it. Her eyes didn't leave mine. Lauren, she said softly. I swallowed. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It doesn't make sense. Grandma Jo reached for the legal pad. Her fingers trembled a little, not with age exactly. More like with anger she wasn't used to letting herself hold. You made this? She asked. Yeah, I said. I started because I kept seeing the same amounts. She traced one column with her fingertip. The tip of her finger dragged slightly over the paper, catching on the pen grooves. Where did you get these statements? She asked. You gave them to me, I said. The envelope's on your desk. Grandma Jo leaned back in her chair. The wood creaked under her. For a second, she looked small, not in a weak way, but in a lonely way. I didn't want to think about it, she said. I didn't rush to fill the silence. I let it sit there between us, thick and honest. She looked at the ceiling like she was counting. Then the quiet broke with a knock. Not at the door, at the window. Brad's face appeared for half a second at the front window glass like a bad pop-up ad. He cupped his hands around his eyes to see inside. Grandma Jo's shoulders stiffened. I stood up so fast my chair legs scraped the floor. My heart was pounding hard enough that my ears felt hot. Did you tell him? Grandma asked, sharp now. No, I said. I swear. Brad knocked again, louder, and tried the front door handle like he owned it. Grandma Jo's voice went tight. He has a key. Of course he did. Brad's voice came through the door. muffled but loud. "Grandma, it's me. Why aren't you answering?" I moved toward the hallway without thinking, then stopped myself. Grandma Jo reached for my wrist. Her grip was stronger than I expected. "Don't you open that door," she said. I looked at her. The woman who still ironed her napkins. The woman who thanked the cashier by name. Her chin lifted. "What do you want to do?" I asked. Grandma Jo stared at the folder on the table, then at the door. "I want a lawyer in the room," she said. "I want witnesses." My phone buzzed again on the table, screen lighting up the lace runner. "Mom." Then another notification stacked on top. "Tessa, are you seriously starting drama right now?" I didn't answer, Mom. I didn't answer Tessa either. Grandma Jo stood up and walked to the front door, slow and steady. She didn't open it. She rested her palm against the wood like she was grounding herself. "Brad," she called through the door, calm as a librarian. "Go home." Brad rattled the handle again. "Grandma, what is going on?" "Lauren's in there." I saw her car. Grandma Jo didn't look at me. "Go home," she repeated. There was a pause. Then Brad's voice shifted, softer, like a switch flipped. "Are you okay? Did she upset you?" "Because she gets like that." I felt my face go hot, but I stayed quiet. I stared at the brass deadbolt and the little scratches around it, the marks of old keys. Grandma Jo's jaw tightened. "Leave," she said. Brad knocked once more, hard, and then we heard his footsteps on the porch steps. Gravel crunched as he walked back toward the driveway. Grandma Jo turned around. Her eyes were wet, but her voice stayed even. "We're not doing this alone," she said. Later that week, the restaurant after church happened again, like a rerun nobody asked for. Mom insisted. "It'll be nice," she said on the phone. "We'll all reset." I almost didn't go. I should have listened to that instinct. But Grandma Jo had asked me to come, and when she asks, you come. That was the whole problem. I picked her up, helped her into my passenger seat, and watched her adjust her purse on her lap with precise little movements. She wore pearl studs and a cardigan that still had the tag string tucked inside the seam. "You don't have to stay if they act ugly," she told me as we drove. I kept my eyes on the road. "I know," I said. But I didn't believe myself. The restaurant was crowded. The air smelled like coffee and fried onions. Families filled the booths in their good clothes, kids sliding around on vinyl seats. Brad and Tessa were already there. Brad stood up when we walked in, too big with his smile. "Grandma," he said, loud enough for the table behind him to hear. "There she is." Mom came around the booth to hug Grandma, then kissed my cheek like we were fine. "Look at you," she said, flicking her eyes over my sweater. "So cute." It wasn't a compliment. It was a measurement. We sat. I kept the manila folder in my tote, the strap looped around my ankle under the table like a leash. The folder corner pressed against the inside fabric, a reminder. The server came over. Same woman as last time. She recognized us and didn't look happy about it. "Can I get everyone started with drinks?" she asked. Mom answered for everyone again. Brad told a story about his work that didn't go anywhere. Tessa laughed at the wrong parts. Grandma Jo listened, her hands folded, her eyes moving between faces like she was taking inventory. Then Brad leaned back and said it. "You know what I love?" he said, smiling at the next table like he needed an audience. "Lauren acts all independent, but she's been the charity case since college." The word hit the booth like a dropped fork. Mom laughed too fast. "Oh my God, Brad." Tessa covered her mouth like she couldn't breathe from laughing, but her eyes were flat. Grandma Jo's face didn't change. Not right away. She stared at Brad like she was trying to recognize him. I could feel the server waiting beside the table, notepad frozen again. I looked at the menu in front of me even though I wasn't reading it. My fingers smoothed the paper edge until it curled. Brad kept going. "I mean, it's true. We've all pitched in. Right, Mom?" Mom shrugged, playing casual. "We've helped when we could. Family helps family." Grandma Jo's voice cut through, quiet but clear. "What have you helped her with?" Mom blinked. "Excuse me?" Grandma Jo kept her eyes on Mom. "What have you paid for?" The table went still. Even Brad's smile faltered. Mom tried a light tone. "Oh, Jo. You know, little things. When she needed it." Grandma Jo nodded once, like she'd heard enough. I didn't speak. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, but I stayed silent. The server cleared her throat. "Are we ready to order?" she asked, like she was offering an exit. I turned to her. "Could you split the checks?" I asked. Mom's head snapped toward me. "Lauren, don't be ridiculous." "I'm not," I said. Brad laughed, but it sounded thin now. "You're really doing this over a joke?" I didn't answer him. I looked down, pulled my wallet out, and set my card on the edge of the table. My hand was steady, even if my stomach wasn't. Grandma Jo reached into her purse and slid her card next to mine. She didn't look at anyone when she did it. Mom's face changed. A tiny crack in the smile. "This is embarrassing," she hissed, low enough that the next booth couldn't hear but loud enough to make it sting. Grandma Jo lifted her chin. "No," she said. "This is clarifying. We ate anyway. Not because it was pleasant. Because leaving would have made it a scene, and my family loved scenes as long as I was the one in them." When we got to the car afterward, Mom followed us out into the parking lot. Her heels clicked fast on the concrete. "Lauren," she snapped, grabbing my elbow. "You are not going to poison Grandma against us." I gently pulled my arm free. "I didn't say anything," I said. Mom's eyes darted to Grandma, then back to me. "Then stop acting like you're better than everyone." Grandma Jo opened her car door and paused. "Diane," she said, calm again, "tell Alan Pierce to schedule the reading." Mom's face drained. "What reading?" Grandma Jo got into the car, closed the door, and looked straight ahead. Mom turned to me, voice sharp with panic now. "What did you do?" Then my phone buzzed in my pocket with a photo message from Mom. It was a cosign form, already filled out, with my name typed on the line. I stood there in the parking lot with my phone in my hand, staring at the photo Mom had sent. The cosign form looked clean and official. Typed boxes, a dealership logo, and my name sitting on the signature line like it belonged there. Mom leaned toward my window like she could climb into the car through it. "I filled it out to save you time," she said, too bright. "All you have to do is sign." Grandma Jo sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded over her purse, looking straight ahead at nothing. "I didn't agree to this," I said. Mom's smile didn't move. "Lauren, don't do this in a parking lot," she hissed. "People can hear." People were walking out with to-go boxes and styrofoam cups. A man in a Steelers hoodie glanced our way, then looked away fast. "I'm not signing anything," I said. Mom's voice dropped lower. "Then you can explain to your brother why you're ruining his life." I swallowed. I could feel my pulse in my jaw. Grandma Jo finally turned her head. "Diane," she said even, "get in your car and go home." Mom's eyes widened like she couldn't believe Grandma had spoken in public. "This is because of Lauren," she said quickly. "She's twisting things. She's always had a chip on her shoulder." Grandma Jo didn't look at her. She looked at me. "Drive," she said. I put the car in reverse. Mom stepped back like she was offended by the motion itself. On the ride home, Grandma Jo didn't talk much. The road noise filled the silence. Her purse strap creaked when she shifted it on her lap. When I dropped her off, she held my hand for a second on her front step. "Do not sign anything," she said. "I won't," I promised. I drove to my apartment with the manila folder on the passenger seat like a passenger that didn't blink. The bent corner kept catching the light from street lamps as I turned. Inside, I set my tote on the kitchen chair and pulled the folder out. I spread the statements across my counter again, smoothing them with my palm. Then I opened my laptop. I wasn't trying to play detective. I just needed one thing that couldn't be argued away. I found the bank's customer service number on the statement and dialed. My fingers were cold on the phone case. After the automated menu, a woman picked up. "Thank you for calling," she said. "This is Kendra. How can I help you?" I looked at Grandma's account number on the paper and took a breath. "My grandmother asked me to help organize her statements," I said carefully. "I'm not trying to access anything I shouldn't. I just need to confirm whether these cash withdrawals were in person or processed another way." Kendra paused. I heard typing, fast and light. "I can't discuss account details without the account holder," she said. I expected that. I grabbed my keys again. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in my car in the bank parking lot, the phone on speaker, the late-day sun pouring through my windshield. The dashboard smelled faintly like vanilla from an old air freshener that never really worked. Grandma Jo sat beside me, upright, her hands in her lap. She held her own phone loosely, like she was daring it to ring. When Kendra came back on, Grandma spoke before I could. "This is Marjorie Whitaker," she said. "I'm here." Kendra's tone shifted into that smooth, professional warmth. "Thank you, Miss Whitaker. I can help with general questions." Grandma Jo nodded once like she was talking to someone in the room. I slid one statement closer and read the line item out loud, my finger pinning the paper. "Withdrawal," I said. "Same amount," repeated. "How were these processed?" Kendra typed again. The clicking came through the speaker like tiny fingernails. "These were cash withdrawals initiated in branch," she said. "Multiple occurrences." Grandma Jo didn't react at first. She just stared at the steering wheel like it had betrayed her. "In branch," I repeated. "So someone physically went in?" "Yes," Kendra said, "and I can confirm they were not ATM withdrawals." Grandma's mouth tightened. "I don't go in," she said quietly. Kendra hesitated, then stayed procedural. "I can't identify who accompanied you without additional authorization, but I can tell you the withdrawals were frequent. They were not coded as emergency disbursements, not emergencies." My stomach went hard. I stared at the statements like they might start moving. Grandma Jo's voice stayed steady, but it sounded thinner now. "I want to restrict this," she said. "I want fewer ways for anyone to do this." Kendra explained options. 2-step verification. Notes on the account. A requirement that Grandma be present. It was ordinary, boring banking language. It felt like a door closing. When we ended the call, the silence in the car was heavy enough to press on my chest. Grandma Jo reached into her purse and pulled out a small address book. The cover was worn at the corners. "Alan Pierce," she said, flipping pages. "He's reading it out loud." I watched her finger land on the lawyer's number like she'd been practicing. Back at my apartment, my phone buzzed with an email notification. From Alan Pierce, subject, Whitaker Estate Meeting Confirmation. I opened it with my thumb. It confirmed the time, the location, and one line that made my skin prickle. "Witnesses will be present." Then a text came through from Brad, right under the email. "Mom said you're trying to get Grandma to cut us out. Tell me you're not that kind of person." Brad's text sat under the lawyer's email like it belonged there. "Mom said you're trying to get Grandma to cut us out. Tell me you're not that kind of person." I stared at the glowing screen until it dimmed. Then I tapped it awake again. Like if I kept looking, the words would rearrange into something kinder. Grandma Jo was on my couch, still in her cardigan, her purse upright beside her like a guard dog. I'd made tea. I didn't drink. The mug sat on the coffee table, skin forming on top. "She's calling people," Grandma said. Her voice was calm, but her fingers kept smoothing the same spot on her purse strap. "Your mother. How do you know?" I asked. Grandma nodded toward the landline on my kitchen counter. It had rung twice while I was in the bathroom. She didn't pick up either time. "I know that ring," she said. I walked to the counter and opened the manila folder again. The corner was more bent now, like it had been through too many hands. I pulled out my legal pad and the printed statements, stacking them neatly even though my stomach felt messy. "I want to go over it with you," I said. "Before the meeting, so you're not hearing anything for the first time in that room." Grandma Jo's eyes flicked to the folder. "Okay," she said. We sat at my small kitchen table. The chair legs squeaked when Grandma shifted. Outside my window, a bus hissed at the stop and pulled away. I slid the statements out one at a time. "This one," I said, pointing. This was the week Brad said his car was in the shop. Grandma leaned in, her perfume faint and powdery. She read the line, then looked away like the paper was rude. "He came over," she said. "He brought donuts." I kept my voice gentle. "Do you remember what he said?" Grandma's mouth tightened. "He said he didn't want to worry your mother," she said. "He said he was embarrassed." I nodded. I wrote one small note in the margin of my pad. Donuts. Embarrassed. I hated how normal it sounded. My phone buzzed on the table. A group text. Mom had named it Whitaker Family. "Diane, we need to talk before Alan's meeting. All of us. Tonight. Grandma, too. Brad. Yeah, let's clear the air. Tessa, please don't make this into something it's not." I stared at the screen. The little typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, like Mom was pacing while she typed. Grandma Jo watched my face. "Don't answer," she said. I set the phone down. The screen went dark. A knock came at my apartment door a few minutes later. 3 quick taps, then one harder. My body reacted before my brain did. My shoulders lifted. My hands went cold. Grandma Jo stayed seated, chin up. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Mom? Brad behind her. Tessa a step back, holding her phone like she was ready to record. I didn't open the door. Mom's voice came through, bright and sharp. Lauren, open up. I kept my forehead near the door, not touching it. The chain lock looked small and flimsy. We know you're in there, Brad said, like that helped his case. I didn't answer. Mom tried again, softer now. Sweetheart, we're not mad. We just want to understand what you're doing. Grandma Jo called out from the table, louder than I expected. She's not doing anything. Go home. Silence. Then Brad laughed once, short and disbelieving. Grandma, he called, are you seriously listening to her? Grandma's voice didn't rise. I'm listening to paper, she said. That shut them up for a beat. Tessa spoke then, her voice tight with politeness. Marjorie, nobody is taking advantage of you. We all help you. Grandma didn't respond. Mom's voice snapped back. Lauren, you always do this. You get offended, you run, and then you act like everyone else is cruel. Brad cut in. Quick. She's jealous. She always has been. She wants to be the favorite. I stood there with my hand on the doorknob, not turning it. My thumb kept rubbing the metal, back and forth, leaving a smudge. Just show us what you have, Mom said. If it's nothing, then why are you hiding? Grandma's chair scraped behind me. She came to stand a few feet back, close enough that I could feel her presence. She didn't touch my shoulder, but it felt like she did. We'll see it at Alan's, Grandma said. Not on your schedule. Mom's voice went brittle. So that's it. You're letting Lauren poison you. Grandma replied, quiet and final. I'm letting Lauren organize what you didn't want organized. No one spoke for a second. Then we heard footsteps retreating down the hallway, faster now. The elevator dinged faintly. When it was quiet again, I walked back to the table and sat down hard. My knees felt shaky like I'd run somewhere. Grandma Jo pushed her phone toward me. Alan emailed me too, she said. He wants anything you have in copies. I pulled my laptop closer, opened my spreadsheet, and started printing. The printer whirred and choked like it hated being involved. Pages slid out warm, the ink smelling sharp. Grandma watched the papers stack up. Are you going to warn them? She asked. I thought about Mom's smile in the restaurant. Brad's eyes in the window. The co-sign form with my name already typed. I shook my head. No, I said. I'm done giving them time to prepare excuses. Grandma Jo nodded once, like she'd been waiting for that. Then my phone lit up again, a new email notification. From Alan Pierce, subject, additional attendees. The lawyer's email was short. Additional attendees. No names in the preview, just that phrase sitting there like a warning label. I opened it. Alan Pierce, per Miss. Whitaker's request. 2 neutral witnesses will be present. Please arrive 10 minutes early. Bring any supporting documents in duplicate. Grandma Jo read over my shoulder, then nodded like she'd expected it. Neutral, she repeated. Good. The morning of the meeting, I wore a plain navy sweater and flats that didn't squeak. I packed the manila folder and the fresh printouts in a tote with a zipper. I zipped it twice. The sound was loud in my quiet apartment. Grandma Jo sat at my kitchen table while I checked my keys, my phone, the folder, then my keys again. She had her purse on her lap and a small tissue packet tucked into the side pocket like she was going to church. You don't have to say much, I told her as we walked to the car. Grandma Jo looked at me like I was the one who needed reminding. I'm not planning to, she said. The law office was in a low, modern building with a glass door that reflected the parking lot. Inside, the air smelled like toner and lemon cleaner. The lobby had a bowl of mints and a stack of magazines nobody touched. Alan Pierce came out to greet us. He was tall, gray-haired, and calm in the way people get when they've seen families implode before lunch. Miss Place. Whitaker, he said to Grandma Jo. Lauren. He didn't ask how we were. He didn't act like this was social. He led us down a hallway into a conference room with a long table and chairs that looked expensive but felt stiff. At one end of the room sat 2 people I didn't recognize. A woman in her 40s with a notebook. A man with a neutral face and a polo shirt, hands folded. Alan gestured. These are the witnesses, he said. They're not involved. They're here to observe. Grandma Jo nodded, then took her seat at the head of the table like it was her house. I sat one chair down from her, close enough to pass papers without making it a performance. I set my tote on the floor, strap looped around my ankle like before. A few minutes later, the door opened again. Mom came in first, shoulders back, smile ready. She wore a cream blazer like this was an interview she planned to win. Brad followed, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the room. Tessa came behind him, holding her phone in her palm like she wanted proof of her own. Mom's smile faltered when she saw the witnesses. "What is this?" she asked. "Too loud." Alan didn't flinch. "Neutral witnesses," he said, "as requested by Miss Pease. Whitaker." Mom recovered fast and pasted the smile back on. "Of course," she said. "That makes sense." Brad's eyes landed on me. "So you really did all this," he muttered. I didn't respond. I looked down at my hands and adjusted the zipper pull on my tote, small and quiet. No fuel. Everyone sat. Alan opened a folder of his own and looked at Grandma Jo. "Ms. Whitaker, are you comfortable proceeding?" he asked. Grandma Jo nodded once. "Yes." Alan's voice turned formal. He explained what he was about to do in plain terms, not dramatic, not emotional. He said he would read the will aloud. He said questions could come after. He said interruptions would be stopped. Mom smiled and folded her hands on the table like she was posing for a family photo. Alan began reading. At first, it was the predictable stuff. Personal items. A small donation to the church. A ring to a cousin I'd barely met. Mom's posture stayed confident, like she was just waiting for the part that mattered. Brad leaned back and crossed his ankle over his knee, bouncing his foot. Then Alan's tone shifted slightly, the way a sentence sounds when it's about to land somewhere sharp. He read the house. "Not to Mom. Not to Brad. To my granddaughter, Lauren Whitaker," he said. The room went silent so fast it felt physical. Mom blinked like she hadn't heard correctly. "Excuse me?" she said. Brad sat forward. "What?" Alan didn't look up. He kept reading, calm and steady. He read about a trust, not controlled by Mom, not accessible by Brad. Disbursements at the discretion of the trustee, he said, and named the trustee, Alan Pierce. Mom's face drained again, like in the parking lot, but worse now. Her mouth opened, then closed. Brad scoffed. "This is a joke," he said. "Grandma, tell me this is a joke." Grandma Jo didn't look at him. "It's not," she said. Mom snapped into motion, voice rising. "Joe, you can't do this. You're being manipulated." Alan lifted one hand, calm. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said to my mother, "please wait until I finish." Mom's eyes flashed. "This is because Lauren filled your head with nonsense." Brad pointed at me. "She's been plotting. She's always wanted to take what isn't hers." I stayed still. I didn't argue. I didn't even look at him. I let their words hang in the air where the witnesses could catch them. Alan continued. Then he read the part that made Brad's face change. "A reduction in discretionary gifts to any beneficiary who has requested or received cash withdrawals from my accounts in the past year, as documented," he said. Brad's foot stopped bouncing. Mom's head snapped toward Alan. "What documented?" Alan finally looked up, just briefly. "Supporting documents were provided," he said, and acknowledged. Brad laughed once, sharp and forced. "You're accusing me of stealing?" Alan didn't answer that. He turned his gaze to Grandma Jo. "Ms. Whitaker, do you wish the documents entered into the meeting record?" he asked. Grandma Jo looked at me. I reached down, unzipped my tote, and pulled out the manila folder. The bent corner was worse now, almost soft. I slid it onto the table, straight toward Alan, not toward my family. Brad stared at it like it was a weapon. Mom's voice shook, just a little. "Lauren," she said, warning. I didn't look at her. Alan opened the folder. And that's when Brad said a name that wasn't mine. He didn't even mean to. It popped out of him like a reflex. "Ask Derek," Brad snapped, pointing at the folder like it was the one lying. Derek was there. Derek knows. The witnesses both looked up at the same time. Alan Pierce didn't raise his voice. He just tilted his head slightly. "Who is Derek?" he asked. Brad's jaw worked like he was chewing on nothing. "It's just a guy," he said. "From the bank. Like a friend." Grandma Jo's face changed then. Not dramatic. Just a small tightening around her eyes. "There is no friend at my bank," she said. Mom jumped in fast, hands fluttering like she could smooth the air. "Brad is nervous," she said. "He says names when he's nervous. This is all being blown out of proportion." Alan slid one statement out of the manila folder and held it flat on the table. "Ms. Whitaker," he said to Grandma, "some of these withdrawals note an accompanying party. That is why I asked for witnesses." Mom's eyes flicked to the witnesses again. Her mouth went dry. Brad leaned forward, voice rising. "So what? I'm the villain now? You're all just gonna sit here and act like Lauren is some saint?" I still didn't look at him. My hands were under the table, knuckles pressed together. I focused on the zipper pull on my tote, the small metal edge. Grandma Jo spoke without looking at Brad. "You called her the charity case," she said. "But you were the one holding out your hand." Brad's face went red. "I visited you," he said. "I checked on you." "You checked on my wallet," Grandma replied. Mom made a sound, half gasp, half laugh. "Joe, that is a horrible thing to say." Grandma Jo finally turned toward Mom. "It's a horrible thing to do," she said, "and you let it happen." For a second, Mom's expression softened in a way that almost looked real. "I was trying to keep the family together," she said quietly. "You don't know how hard that is." That was the moment I could have argued. I could have listed every time she'd used me as the cushion between them and consequences. Instead, I stayed silent. Alan cleared his throat gently, like he was turning a page in a book everyone wanted to skip. "We will proceed," he said. "The trust provisions stand. The House provision stands. Any further requests for funds outside the trustees' discretion will be denied." Brad pushed back from the table so hard his chair legs squealed. "This is insane," he said. "Grandma, you're going to regret this." Grandma Jo didn't flinch. "No," she said. "I'm going to sleep." Mom stood too, faster, her voice sharp again. "You're doing this because Lauren has some sad little story about being bullied." I finally looked at her then. Not angry, not pleading, just looking. Mom's words slowed when she met my eyes, like she realized witnesses were watching her choose them. She grabbed her purse, turned, and walked out with her heels, tapping too hard for a hallway that quiet. Brad followed, still talking, but his words got swallowed by the door shutting behind them. The conference room felt colder after that. Alan asked if Grandma wanted to add anything to the record. Grandma Jo shook her head. "I want to go home," she said. In the car, Grandma kept her hands folded on her purse again. Her thumbs smoothed the same spot over and over. The city moved past us in gray winter light. At a red light, she spoke. "I'm not moving in with anyone," she said. "They'll try that next." "I know," I said. She looked at me. "You can have the house," she said, "but not as a prize." "I don't want it as a prize," I said. Grandma Jo nodded like she believed me. Then she reached into her purse and handed me a small key on a plain ring. "Use it when you need quiet," she said. "And don't tell your mother you have it." When I got home, I didn't sit down first. I went straight to my laptop and opened every account and payment I'd ever touched for them. My fingers moved steady, click by click. I canceled the auto pay I'd set up for Brad's phone years ago when he forgot his password. I removed my card from Mom's grocery delivery app. I blocked the dealership number that had been texting me about finalizing the cosign. Then I opened a new note on my phone and typed one sentence. Send it in writing. I didn't feel brave in that moment, just oddly calm, like my body finally understood I wasn't going to keep volunteering for pain. My phone started lighting up anyway. Mom called 3 times in a row. I let it ring. Brad texted, long and messy. "You took Grandma from us. You always wanted this. You think you're better. Answer me." Tessa sent one message. "Congrats. Hope the house keeps you warm." I didn't reply to any of it. Later that night, Grandma Jo called. Her voice was tired but steady. "They came by," she said. "I didn't open the door." "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," she said. "And Lauren?" "Yeah." "You don't owe anyone a performance," she said. "You don't owe them proof twice." After we hung up, I stared at my phone in the dim kitchen light. The manila folder sat on the counter, its corner permanently bent now. A new message came in from a number I didn't have saved. It was one line. "Tell Derek to keep his mouth shut."